Hello and welcome back to Rams Talk, the preview show. We are looking forward to this Tuesday's game against Exeter. I have got Jon Beer, my favourite second name of all the people we've ever had on the podcast. That is the award for the best second name right there. How you doing, Jon?
Yeah, not bad, Jamie. Thanks for having me. I do get that comment quite a lot. It's an immensely good name to have as a surname. Unfortunately, I'm not a big beer drinker myself, more of a Guinness man. So I do get a little bit of stick for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, Guinness is a good drink. If you're going to say you weren't a fan of any alcoholic drink, then I might give you some stick there myself. Jon is co-host of My New Football Club podcast. Go check them out. I know you're doing some great work over there. Jon, how's it going on that?
Yeah, been really good. It's not more of a serious podcast. It's more of a jokey podcast. We're sort of taking the mick out of ourselves and out of the team when we're not doing so well, but trying to stay overly positive and not get too down as well. Trying to bring a more light-hearted approach to maybe sports broadcasting.
Yeah, exactly. I think you've got to do that at times, and I think actually we could probably take a leaf out of that book and do that a bit more as Derby fans, to be quite honest. So that sounds great. Like I said, go check that out, Derby fans listening. So we're going to talk all about the upcoming game in Exeter and just get a bit of insight into the game on Tuesday. So Jon, sum up the season so far from Exeter point of view.
So started the season incredibly well, top of the league at the end of September, and we thought, okay, maybe we've got a little team on our hands, and I think that all came crashing back down to reality. With after that, we went on a horrendous run. I think we didn't win for 16 games, drew 1 in that period, and it was looking a little bit on edge for Gary Caldwell. There was questions about whether he was going to have a job at the end of the year, and luckily for him, he picked up some really important results. I think Stevenage away stands out to me. We were down to 10 men for about 60 minutes and managed to get a point there, being a goal down. And that was sort of the turning point. Then into Boxing Day, beat Carlisle in what seemed like a sort of make or break game for Gary Caldwell. And then since then, we've been flying. I think we've beaten some really good teams away from home. We beat Bristol Rovers, Barnsley, then Peterborough at home last Tuesday, and obviously Wigan away yesterday or Saturday, depending on when you're listening to this. So sort of turned the season not around, but sort of made it a little bit more favourable and a little bit more optimistic that we might be in League One still this season. But there's still a lot next season, but there is still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and thank you for that result against Peterborough, because that was welcome to see that, and obviously they went and lost on Saturday as well, which somehow has kept us second. I know obviously that Bolton have got games in hand, but Derby still find themselves second at time of recording, and when you're listening to this, probably. You mentioned there the two results, 2-1 victories. How did those two games go from your point of view?
So, I mean, there was 3 in the terms of Barnsley, but that was a few weeks ago. Peterborough was a weird one. The first half, we were completely and utterly outplayed by a really strong Peterborough side. Some brilliant players in there, and then the game sort of changed in the 55th minute when they had a sending off, and all of a sudden we looked full of life again. We looked attacking, free flowing like we did at the start of the season, and have looked very good attacking wise at times this season. We've been a little bit lackluster with final balls, end product. We've not really had a striker or a recognised striker all season up until we brought in Mo Issa recently, and he's made a massive difference, made a big difference in the game against Peterborough. Came on, stretched the play, allowed us to get in behind a little bit more, but ultimately it was a little bit of a smash and grab. A bit lucky to win that one at home. 2 own goals. Well, one's now been credited to Reece Cole from the free kick, but sort of came off the keeper. So yeah, we were quite fortunate to win the one at home. Wigan, slightly different story. Went 2-0 up. Probably weren't the better side in the game, but showed some really good character, some resilience. Really, really strong defensively, like we have been for large parts of the season, despite that horrible period we went on. And then sort of got unfortunate with a mistake from the keeper, which made it a nervy last 15 minutes or so. But I think we were more deserving of the 3 points on Saturday than we were on Tuesday, certainly.
Yeah, and I think looking at some of I know you've said there about bringing a striker, and I suppose looking at kind of the table and the stats before recording this. I mean, 25 goals scored is one of the lowest, and definitely the lowest in terms of where you are in the table. Sitting 13th. Looking at some of the stats as well, top scorer on 3 goals, top assist on 3 goals. I suppose it's miraculous that you're actually where you are at the moment in the league. Who's kind of, I guess, if we're looking at the game on Tuesday, I suppose Derby fans will want to know who's going to cause us problems from that point of view. Who's going to be able to score a goal? Who's going to be able to kind of unlock a defence and kind of put through a ball that's going to end up in the back of the net from your point of view?
I mean, in terms of who's going to unlock a defence, for me, and he's been an absolute gem from non-league that we signed at the start of the season, has been Reece Cole. He's got a tremendous dead ball. I mean, something I've never seen anything like that at Exeter in all my years of going. He's just superb. He's got pockets of real, I think, championship quality at times. He shows this unbelievable vision, unbelievable weight of pass, he's so elegant on the ball, which is not common of an Exeter City player. And then alongside him, Tom Carroll, who is obviously vastly experienced. We've sort of given him a chance to show what he can do. And he's managed to stay fit for a lot of this season. He's been really, really good for us. Sort of one of those players that goes under the radar. Unless you're really looking at what he does, you don't really notice it. But I mean, in terms of goal threats now, we've got Moisa, who started for the first time on Saturday, scored. I mean, it took a wicked deflection, but something we haven't had a lot of this season is people willing to take shots from outside the area and willing to take risks going forward, because there's been a lot of pressure on us to score. He's sort of come in with a new lease of life, sort of not worried about what people are going to say, shooting from wherever he wants, taking risks, which is something, like I said before, we've really missed. So I think those two will be the main people to look out for. But defensively is something that in the last sort of 5-6 weeks we can really pride ourselves on. There's been a few times, I mean, Barnsley away, Bristol Rovers away, all winning by 1 goal against the Kosh, horrible weather conditions in a lot of those. But yeah, no, we've sort of gelled a little bit again after that, like I say, the 16 game period without a win, and we're sort of playing like we were at the start of the season, where we were sort of picking teams apart and managed to find ourselves top at the end of the first month. So I think there's quality all over the pitch. There's just been a lot of pressure on those players to deliver with a small squad, not the biggest budget. But there's definitely threats all over the pitch out wide. I mean, Vinnie Harper is who we signed from Eastleigh at the start of the season, another bit of a non-league gem, really athletic, powerful, direct. Dion Rankin, who's on loan from Chelsea on the other side. So yeah, we've got threat all over the pitch. Just it has been a bit all over the place for a little bit of this season, but we sort of seem to have started to get a little bit more fluidity and consistency.
Yeah, and I guess we've said there about picking up some good results on the road. Is there any difference to Exeter playing at home on the road? Is it a bit more free flowing? How are Exeter going to come and play at Pride Park? Sorry, it's at your place, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say. I think it's at our place. I mean, just to briefly touch on that game at Pride Park, I think that's the first team this season where I've thought we don't have a chance. Like, I don't know whether we caught you on a good day, or I don't know if you were at the game, but I was fortunate enough to be there, and I just remember thinking we can't even bring the ball down. We've got no attacking threat. You look like you're going to score with every attack. So. I mean, at home this season, we've been a little bit below par. I think our away form has really helped us get to where we are. And I think that's to do with, and don't get me wrong, it's not the biggest stadium in the world, but there has been a lot of pressure from fans this season at times when things have been tough, which has sort of put that pressure on players. Whereas I think away, you've got the pressures off. There's not so many of your own fans. You've got a crowd to upset. We're quite good at disrupting, and we were, maybe with the exception of Derby, disrupting home fans, making them upset, get on their team's back, which sort of forces them into mistakes. I mean, Wigan on Saturday was a perfect example. The amount of times they had the ball with their centre half and there was moans and groans, and that just helps us build into the game, especially at the bigger stadiums like yourself, Wigan, Barnsley. I'm trying to think of where else. Bolton was a horrific showing as well, to be fair, but those kind of places we're looking to frustrate those crowds. But at home, the pressure sort of comes from themselves. They feel like they've got to deliver, and the same as what happens when Derby aren't playing brilliantly at home. The fans start getting on your back, and then we're not very good at dealing with that. We've got quite a naive squad, I think, in that regard. But I think if we are to have a better chance of staying in this division, our home form does drastically need to improve.
Yeah, and likewise, and I know I've just said that, and I was literally just looking at the reverse fixture of us beating you 2-0 at home. So I'm not sure why I thought that was at home. I think actually I'm just wishing we have games at home so we can improve our home form. We're actually not too bad on the road, so actually probably that's a blessing that we're coming down to Exeter. We've obviously mentioned, I guess, some of the danger men and some of the people that will cause problems. Upon looking at some of the stats, it appears that one of your other kind of top-rated players is Will Aimson. Tell us a bit more about Will.
Yeah, it's a funny one with Will, because at the start of the season he was Mr. Consistent, brilliant. You wouldn't have taken him out the team. We have a sort of a weird system at Exeter where we have a club captain and a team captain. So the club captain is sort of captain of all the issues off the pitch, sort of sorts out fines, and that's Piers Sweeney. And then we have a team captain who's sort of who wears the armband on the pitch, more of a leader on the pitch, and that was Will Aimson until recently. I mean, he still is technically, by definition, club captain, but or team captain, sorry, but he has found himself out of favour in recent weeks. Our backline has been superb. We've had a back three of Piers Sweeney, Czech Diabate, and Zach Jules, who have been our sort of central three defenders or centre halves, and then we've had we have two wing backs as well. But he's sort of been out of favour, and I think a lot of fans are starting to question whether he's good enough to play, if he's one of the three best centre halves at the club. I think at the moment, he struggled a lot in that period where we weren't winning, because he took a lot of responsibility being the captain on himself, and he sort of found himself in and out the team at that stage as well. So I think it's not through a lack of Will not being good enough. I think it's just we have been so good defensively that it doesn't make much sense to change it. But I think I think he is good enough to start in our team, but he has just been unfortunate with players hitting form and us being pretty defensively solid.
Yeah, and I guess you could probably draw some parallels on Sonny Bradley. I mean, coming in and our defensive line being so good for so long. Obviously, he's playing some games at the moment, but you see it with a lot of teams in this division. If you start putting in good defensive performances, the manager tends to kind of keep with them and kind of play them when they're in form and trusted. And it does take a bit of a while for that person that's sitting on the bench to kind of come back in. So yeah, I guess surprising to see that he was so kind of highly rated amongst stats, but I imagine that's maybe on certain games earlier in the season and looking at that. In terms of the way that you're going to approach this one, then, I mean, we've talked about how you play at home and on the road, but do you look at this and think, right, we're gonna kind of beat Derby? Do you look at it and think, right, we're going to play for a draw? Or is it a case of let's see on the night and we'll kind of go with what the Derby team comes through the door, I guess?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I as an Exeter City fan, you get used to this way of thinking. I think this is the best way to think. I don't go into any game thinking we're going to win. I go into every game with a tiny bit of hope. And, if we do win, it'll be brilliant. If we don't, well, it is what it is. But, when you play against teams like yourselves, I'm trying to think of, other teams like Blackpool, Bolton, Barnsley, even Peterborough, not the biggest in terms of, fan base maybe, but still a really big club in this division budget-wise. When you come up against these teams, you just have to have a little bit of faith, a little bit of hope that, we've got players that are good enough to on their day, beat any team in this division, but unfortunately they don't show it all the time, like maybe as consistently as yourselves, Peterborough, Bolton as well. But yeah, I don't go into any game thinking we're going to win or we're guaranteed to win. I go in just with a little bit of hope and optimism that we might get a result. And I think it's going to be the same with you guys on Tuesday. Massive team, some unbelievable players. I mean, too many to even name. So yeah, just a little bit of hope, but I would expect you guys to come away victorious.
Well, I hope that's the case, because at the moment we just need to keep winning, and we don't seem to be doing that at the moment, which is rather frustrating. Well, throwing a lead away on Saturday was very, very frustrating. You've said there about, I guess, too many players to mention, and I do think we have, an Arsenal definitely in the front end of the pitch. We've got players that, if they turn up, can be match winners. With that in mind, what weaknesses could Derby exploit?
Yeah, I mean, I am a massive fan of Mendes-Lang. I think he's brilliant in the game. In the reverse fixture at Pride Park, I just remember I was with my brother, and I remember turning to him and thinking, like, he should not be playing in this division. And I don't know whether, again, I caught him on a good day. You see him much more regularly than I do, but he just seemed exceptional. His touch, his movement, he's strong, fast, powerful. It's like it's like sort of any team's dream winger, basically, or front man, or wherever. He's a pretty versatile player. But yeah, I mean, if you get him on the ball and attack our wing backs, I think defensively they struggle. Going forward, they're brilliant, really good, hardworking. I think defensively out wide we do struggle at times, and we saw it at Wigan a few times on the weekend. That ball in between the either sided centre half and the wing back was quite dangerous, and in fact they probably should have scored a couple of goals from those chances. So if Derby were to look to exploit us, I think that would be the way you would do it.
Yeah, and the amount of people that come on this preview show and say Mendes-Lang, and do you know what? Look, I get it. He has been fantastic this season. He is a fantastic player, and I think he probably gets into any team in this division, but he needs to fancy it. And I think there's been occasions probably where you've seen it firsthand where, massively fancies it and everything he touches turns to gold. And there are other situations where he comes in and out of games. And I mean, what he did against Charlton, I know he went off kind of injured, but that's him. But then he also has games where he is quiet for long spells. So, I mean, I'm hoping I see the Mendes-Lang that I saw against Exeter in the home game. But you'll probably be hoping for a quieter Mendes-Lang. But definitely. I do think we have other other areas that we can kind of hurt you. And I think actually what we've been able to do over the transfer window is bring in Ebou Adams, who I think has really kind of, I suppose, solidified that midfield and give us a bit more fight in there. In terms of that, in terms of the middle, because I know you mentioned Tom Carroll, and my thoughts previously when I've seen him, he was obviously on trial at Derby and had a couple of games. He was quite lightweight. Are you quite lightweight in there, or have you got someone that's going to kind of put themselves about and compete with us physically?
Yeah, I would say that's our biggest weakness in midfield. I think Reece Cole's a little bit more tough tackling, but still not of Ebou Adams' sort of stature and pedigree. Obviously, an incredibly strong player. Tom Carroll, obviously, like you said, mentioned very, very lightweight, but when he's on the ball, he's superb. Maybe winning it back, not so much. We have just signed Ryan Woods, who's a little bit more tough tackling, a little bit bulkier, but still not anything sort of like ridiculously powerful. So in that regard, not really. In midfield, we are quite lightweight and more technical, if you like. I think we would have liked to have signed. I think we were looking at more powerful midfielders in January, but just nothing materialised. But yeah, I think if there was to be, one weakness with our midfield, I think it would be that it's not very strong. And if you get some players, I was fortunate enough to see Derby play against Burton early on in the season, and I mean some of them. I mean Max Bird was exceptional, and you've done well to keep hold of him, because I know there was interest in him in January. And even though he's not ridiculously strong or anything like that, he still seems to be able to put himself about a bit, even for a youngster. So yeah, we don't really have that as such now.
Yeah, I think we were lacking a little bit, and I think that's probably why we've brought in Adams, and I think he's really improved us in there. So yeah, that's my thought, and I think looking at your midfield and after hearing your own kind of assessment of it, that's potentially somewhere that we can kind of win the game. So Paul Warne, if you're listening, get Ebou Adams on it, and we'll be all right. In terms for the rest of the season, then, John, aspirations. I mean, what do you want from this Exeter team until the end of the season, and also what do you think is going to happen? I guess.
Yeah, I think that's it's the $1 million question, isn't it? I wish I knew what could happen, or what will happen. I really am just hopeful that we'll stay in the division. I mean, that would be another successful season. I think we've got the second smallest budget in the division. We're already outperforming what we should be. I think we need a little bit of stability. I think in the upcoming season we'll have hopefully a more built squad. Last season was a real regeneration year in terms of we had a lot of youngsters, really talented youngsters go out. We had Josh Keeley, we had Archie Collins leave. A number of other players, Jack Sparks went to Portsmouth. So we had a load of really talented youngsters that obviously we can't afford to keep because people are willing to offer 3-4 times what they're on with us. So we were in that horrible period where, okay, we've now got no one coming through the academy as such that's ready to start League One football. And we've got to bring in players that, we can't afford to bring in someone as good as Archie Collins because else we would, like it's just going to cost you what Archie Collins would cost. So that's kind of how we've survived and done so well in recent years, was because the academy products we've brought through we haven't been paying them what maybe they're worth because other teams haven't unearthed them yet, and there are players, so we can afford to pay them less. So we're in a really hard transitional period, which I think Gary, at the start managed really well. Then people questioned, right, maybe he hasn't managed this transitional period too well. And now we seem to have sort of leveled out again. But I would really quite comfortably snap your hand off right now if you told us we would be playing League One football next season.
Yeah, and I think, looking at it, yes, you went on that bit of a run, but I think if you're able to continue on this run, I don't think you should have any problems. I don't see... I see worse teams in the division than Exeter in my opinion. So let's see what happens. But it's football at the end of the day. We'll probably go on a similar run and fall out of the playoffs. That will probably be something that happens, and that's typical Derby and typical football. Last question for you then, John. You've obviously said that you think Derby are going to come and get the result, but what's your score prediction for the game? What are you going to go with?
Yeah, I don't want to be too pessimistic or negative, but I think it'll be Exeter 1, Derby 2. I think it'll be a hardly contested game. I think we're in good form for us, and I think we've got players that are confident, much more confident than they were when we went to your place. But I still think you'll have the quality and the know-how on the day to get the job over the line.
Yeah, sounds fair. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw because when I go for comfortable wins, we always draw or lose. So I'm going to go 1-1 and hopefully we get a last minute goal 2-1 and I'll take that. But yeah, like we've said there, I don't think it's the best time to be playing you. You seem to have picked up some results, and I think it's quite interesting that teams like Exeter can play a part in deciding who gets automatics, who gets in the playoffs. And as we saw last season, teams really relish kind of playing against a team that are chasing promotion, and they probably put in an extra 10%, 15%. So we'll have to see how that goes on Tuesday. We are better away from home. Amazingly, I think we've sold out our away end at Exeter, which is pretty fantastic.
Incredible
for a
support.
Tuesday night.
Really, really good.
I'm not sure how many teams do that on a Tuesday night away at Exeter, but that's pretty incredible. So, yeah, the Derby fans will be supporting us all the way down in Exeter. But John, thanks so much for joining me. It's been great to catch up again. We didn't see you at the FCAs. I was just saying off stream that someone from Rams Talk said, "Yeah, I met John at the FCAs, and he's a lovely bloke." It wasn't you, so
don't think it was me. No. No, it's all good. No, I hope to be there at some point in the future, but not last season, no.
Well, yeah, we'll maybe see you there at the end of next season, or the middle of next season, whenever it is. But if you have enjoyed listening to this, please do go and rate us 5-star. We'll be back on Sunday reacting to this game and also our Saturday fixture as well. And we will see you then. It's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from John. And finally, just thank you again, John, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Cheers.